Hi, everybody. I'm Joy Kristen. I'm here today with Chris Melendrez, who I'm so honored to speak with today. I'm the first one to interview him. What happened was, as I saw a post that he had on Facebook, and it really spoke to me. I shared the post, I read it over and over, and it was a little bit about his past, his story, and it just resonated with me so much and affected me that I had to share it. We ended up talking and in Messenger, and I thought, it would be really awesome to be able to do a podcast to be able to help more people who have maybe been in the same situation, and just dialogue is always good, getting things out, talking about it. So here we are. Here's our podcast, and welcome, Chris.
Hello.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, I'd love for you to remind me a little bit of, well, first of all, just tell me, where do you live and what is it that you do?
I'm in San Francisco, California, and born in Miami. Came out here when I was 6 months old, so I've been here my whole life. And I am a NLP trainer, coach, speaker. Um, yeah.
How long have you been doing that for?
Well, I got certified in 2019. I feel like I've been coaching and speaking my whole life, but professionally, um, yeah, since 2019, towards the end, 2020, when I became a practitioner. And then I just kept going all the way to trainer level. And yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So you kind of at the beginning were right in the midst of when COVID was happening then,
Mhm. Yeah, I
right?
was able to get like the one of the last like in-person trainings before it went online for a while.
Oh, wow.
So I'm very glad I got that experience because I think yeah, it would have been a totally different experience. I mean, we still get a lot from the online courses, but for me at the time, like being in a room with those people and like having those like relationships that I made was like very, very helpful for just like my healing and my stepping into my future self, you know? So
So it was like an in-person type of training then, like
yeah,
mastermind type of thing
yeah,
in San Francisco.
yeah.
Okay.
No, it was in Henderson in like Las Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, it was in Henderson, Nevada. And the first one was 7 days. And then the next one, I want to say it was like 15 days, but I stayed for like another one for maybe like another 20 days. But it was like maybe a week after. So I was out there like 45 days in the desert,
Okay.
which is like a
Oh,
big decision for me because like I had I had told my job I was gonna take the time off. And
yeah.
so like stay towards the end, it was like I was gonna lose my place where I was living. I was gonna lose my job. I even like my car had got impounded at the time. So I had to come back to like take my car out the pound. And so it was just like a really big decision. I was like, I'm gonna lose my place, my job, and my car.
Yeah.
And so took like a day to think about it. And I was just like, you know what? I'll just stay here. And yeah,
That's, so like a pivotal moment type of thing
yeah,
almost, right?
it was
Yeah.
letting things go. And I mean, I knew I didn't want to go back to work. Um, it was just like I was really working there for I was with my brother, and so my brother had um he was like in his sobriety and like recovering and getting his life back. And so it was like very important that I like showed up every day with my brother. And then this was also how I was paying for the trainings because at that point, um, yeah, I mean, still, I don't have like credit cards and things like that. So it was just like putting all my savings away so I can like go out here and go get certified and do something that I loved.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah,
So
so it was,
what made you decide to choose that field? Like, how did you find out about NLP and what it was? Like, a lot of people don't even know what it is.
yeah. So I
What it
found
is.
out through like Tony Robbins when I grew up. I would cut school a lot. And so I would go home when I was able to. And so he'd be on the infomercials all the time. And he'd be like this excited, larger than life figure. Back in the day, they used to have infomercials, and that's how they would sell their coaching programs and things like that. And so I would see I would watch his little infomercials, and I would watch them. So that's how I kind of like got to know him. And then as I got a little older, he had an event with Donald Trump, actually. They were selling some real estate stuff. And so I went
Yeah.
down to the hotel, and I snuck in. I was able to see them. And then I was always fascinated by the guy. And then I eventually ended up reading his book. And it talked about NLP, but I don't know if it really talked about it per se. But he did talk about like Richard Bandler and some other guys that he learned from. And then I do this thing where it's like, I always want to find out who taught the people that I'm into, you know? I'm like, well, who taught
Oh,
him? And I
smart.
just keep takes me down rabbit holes, and like
Yeah.
it's just always, yeah, it's like, so that's why I've like been able to learn from a lot of different sources. But
Yeah.
one of them was Richard Bandler and John Grinder, and they were like the creators of NLP. And I was like, what is this? And I know he had bought this big castle, and I was like, I'm gonna buy a castle one day. And how'd he do it with NLP? So I knew about it. And so that was like how I learned about it. But I didn't like get into it until um I mean, I guess I would always like kind of listen to it, but I didn't really get into NLP until I bought a book called Neuro Linguistic Programming: The Essential Guide. And this was after I had got sober, and like I had got sober, but I still was dealing with all the like trauma and mindset issues and things like that. So like that book really helped out. And so I started seeing the changes it was doing in me, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go get certified. So
Okay. So it's like a natural progression to what was happening in your life at the time. Yeah, interesting.
yeah.
Well, yeah, and that like brings us back to like how we met
Mm.
on Facebook when I saw your post that just kind of on my feed. I was reading about your story and it was just really impactful. So do you want to talk about like your past and what happened and what brought you to the next step and what how it's shaped you into what you believe now and the next steps in your life? Tell me your story.
Okay. So there's like a lot to my story. So I'm gonna try to pack in, and I guess we could just talk more because it just like leads to other things. But I'll talk about the post. Like the post, I was I was like on drugs really bad, um, homeless. I had like lost everything, sabotaged my like everything I had, and yeah, just found myself addicted to heroin, meth, coke, pills, like everything you can think of. And so I have all these pictures in my phone, like old pictures from those times. And but I never like I don't really go into them, you know. So I was on the phone, and so this was like I got sober 2017 or 2016 December. I only remember because it's my birthday. I know a lot of people would just like to count their days sober. I don't really do that. Like I don't even like once it was done, it was done. But the only reason I remember because it was my birthday, and that was when I first got online. Like I never was ever online. So like I remember I got on in 2017. But so I was going through my phone, and like I've been posting since 2017 after that. And everything I would learn, I would post online. And so it was just like I would read some, I post it online. I would learn some, I posted online. Like I was seeing there was a lot of just negativity, a lot of
Yeah.
everybody's just complaining or crying about stuff or posting tacos. And so I just wanted to like share what I was learning. So that's all I would ever post, and that's all people would ever see. And so I never really ever shared anything. So unless you like actually knew me,
Yeah.
and that was more so that because I was the people that would follow me at the time were like people from my neighborhood or people from my past. So it was really for them. It was never like nothing for marketing or nothing for like coaching. Right? It was just simply like this is something that I wish like I had at at certain times of my life. And so I'm just sharing it with people. But slowly, like my following started to grow, and And I like started taking different trainings and that, like more people would come into like my circle. And so no one ever knew like my story. It's just you only know what I post. And it was like after like I had that transformation. And so I was sitting there and there's people that would see me like in the street, like people I know from my past, and I could tell like they were a little standoffish or whatever. And like when they get to know me and they're like, oh, well, you're still like super cool, you know, like you're still kind of like I remember, but I didn't know if I could approach you. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, oh, well, what you post online, like I don't, you know, it wasn't like relatable to them anymore. And like, so
Oh,
that was,
yeah.
yeah, that was one thing. And then there was other people I'm having conversations with, but like I felt like they just like no one really knew who I was. And I did realize like I'm keeping this part like away. Like I just for whatever reason, it wasn't maybe there was some shame over it, but I wasn't necessarily like sharing like my personal story. And so I don't know why I had this thought. I was like on the phone with somebody, and as I'm talking to them, I'm just looking at like these old pictures, and I was like, even I was like surprised, you know, because I haven't gone in those pictures for a while. I probably did like once or twice, and like I couldn't really stomach it. I was like, oh my god, I don't want to see this. And so I started looking at it, and I was like, you know what? Everyone always does like the before and after for weight, or like before and after for like when they're broke to when they're rich, and like everyone's doing all these before and afters. And I was like, let me put one of these like side to side and see, you know. And like the one that I picked, it's like funny because it has all the yogurt in front of me and stuff. But I try to pick like the least worst one because like I was in really bad shape, you know. And so I didn't really like go too crazy on like where, but I did like you could visibly see the difference, you know. So I posted one
Yeah.
from when I was like in staying in my brother's garage and like just like all the way lost to when I was at Offermind at this event in
Yeah.
Idaho for with Russell Brunson, Myron Golden, Steve J. Larson, and all these guys. It was after I finished my NLP training. Somebody there was like, "You need to learn about marketing now. You need to learn about funnel." I'm like, "What's a funnel?" You know, and I didn't know I didn't know anything. And he just sent me there. So, but I have this picture where I was there. So I showed the before and after, and then I just started like sharing, you know, like what was going on at that point. So it was like on this side of the picture, I was going through this, and it was like just really about like addiction, being in gangs, um, just like I was really angry. You know, I was angry at the world. I was like, I had a lot of just like negative emotions, didn't know how to self regulate, like, didn't know how to control my thoughts. I was like really just out of shape. And then this other version was like, I was like empowered and changed and like had really like took control of my mind, took control of my situation. I was like completely sober. And then I had never did no AA meetings or no counselor. Like I didn't actually ever talk to anybody. It was just like some I did on my own. And like the counselors that I was on methadone. I don't know if you know about methadone, but
Yeah.
methadone is so if you're like on opiates really bad, they have this solution for you where they just give you synthetic opiates, you know, and so just like another form of which is actually harder to get off of, you know. And so I'm at this like methadone clinic and like super high doses, and even they were just like, you're never gonna be able to get off. Like this is just something you have to live with for the rest of your life. Like, you
Yeah.
know, we're gonna management, you know, because you just have to learn how to manage this and like figure out a way that you could live with this problem and like label you as an addict and like all these things. So and in my mind I used to be like, no, like this isn't like where I end up at, you know? And I used to like
Yeah.
share stories and like I'm not gonna be here forever. And the only reason I would even go to the methadone clinic was because they'll give it to you while you're in jail. And so anytime I would go to jail, I like had to like withdraw really bad. So I would make sure to just go to the clinic like just enough to where they don't kick me out. So like for wherever anytime I end up in jail, like I could at least get my drugs in jail, you know?
Mm.
And so but I wouldn't really like keep up with the clinic. They're like, you have to just keep coming. And I don't know, but even they said I couldn't do it. So like at one point I had made a decision, like this is it. You know, I'm not living like this no more. I mean, I had decided that many other times, a lot of rock bottom moments, but they weren't like it wasn't like a real decision, you know. It
Okay.
wasn't felt like a real decision, but it wasn't, you know. But at one point I was like, this is it. Can't go on like this.
Do you
And I just
when you said you can't go on like this. Was there anything that, like, what was the deciding factor that pushed that? Like, was there, like
I
basically
mean, I
pivotal
wanted,
moment?
yeah, I mean, I've given it so much thought because I like tried to understand it myself as well. And like I had way worse moments from when I made that decision. Like I had some moments that anyone else in the right mind, like, I would be laid out dead, and they'd bring me back to life. And like you would think, oh, this is the moment. And like
Yeah.
another year would just go on the same. I was just really tired. Like I was really tired of it. Um, like I was just like really tired. And so and like I already I was yeah, I felt like I had this thought, like this isn't what life was meant for. Like I know for a fact, like I'm not meant to live like this. And I couldn't accept the fact that this just how it was gonna be. And people were just saying like, this is just how it is. And really like my mom played a huge influence in it because like I know like the pain that she was going through and yeah, it's just like her having to see me in that situation. And like at this point, like my brother is on drugs too now. Like most of my life, I mean all my life, he wasn't. And so he had, this situation as well where he went through a really bad divorce, lost everything, didn't know how to deal with it, and just ended up on drugs. And so um, it was just like the weight of like my mom and my sister and my nephew and like my daughter not being in my life, like all this, like I just like had a thought like this couldn't be it. And the thing is like I kept trying to do it on my own. And so I always do things on my own. I even say like I didn't go to counseling, I didn't go to because it's just like I have this thing where it's like even with like my business, I'd probably be so much further in business if I would just be like open to help. Like that's just one thing that I'm still working on till today.
It's a big
It's
one.
like it's a trauma response, or something where I just hyper independent, don't like,
Interesting.
yeah, don't
Yeah.
like ask anyone for help. So, but I tried so many times. I tried, and it's just, you know, I don't like putting limits on myself. So it's like I'm careful when I say I couldn't do it, but I did try everything, and it just wasn't happening. And so I do remember clearly, like my mom just always said, like you can always go to God for help. Like you can always go to God. And so there's a couple moments. So I came across this book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle,
Okay.
but I had already like decided. So I knew it was already in place. I was like, okay, like I can't live like this. Someone had offered me a job and I was like, I wasn't like working no jobs. And I was like, okay, like I'll work. It was like a security job standing at a door. And I was like, maybe I'll like try to go to work. So I'd stand by a door all day and they would let me have my headphones in. And like I've always been, even when I was like getting high, like I would always still listen to motivational things and audiobooks. Like I was just talking to a friend of mine right now who's actually doing really, really well, but who also reached out from the post. And he's like, God, I
Oh,
remember those days. I remember you. Like I remember that. And he's like, I used to get so annoyed because like we would get high and you would like listen to Tony Robbins, you listen to Les Brown, and you're listening
had
to
that in you, even then.
yeah,
Even
yeah, yeah. So I was like always planting the seeds, and I
yeah.
would still try to be a motivational speaker while we're all getting high. Like we don't have to live like this, this like
Look at us. What are we doing? Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
And so like the seed was always there. And yeah, so I was standing like at the door one day, and then I don't even know how I came across this book. Just going through rabbit holes. Power Now pops up, and I listened to it all the way through for my 8 hour shift. And I was like, God, what is this guy like talking about? Like you're not really your thoughts, and you're not really like I didn't really understand that concept. I was like, I was being driven crazy by like all these memories of like all these things that had happened and all these things that I had done. And it was just like I was driving myself crazy. Like I would like get up and like the thoughts would just run, like pictures right in my face of like just all these just like horrible things. And so I was trying to escape that. and it was just like really tough, like living in my own head. So any way I could just like numb it out or just, and so, which was crazy because it would just add another day of like horrible memories and horrible thoughts. They would just all compound on each other. And so, but I remember he was like that's not you, and he had this thing where he called like the pain body and like concept of the ego and like and how thoughts just run on their own. And so he had a moment where he's like his moment was he's like really depressed and he had this thought like I can't live with myself. And like he realized like the thought, he's like, well, who am I? Like I or the self that I can't live with? Like which one am I? And so that was like opening to me. I was like, whoa, wait, what's going on here? And so I was open to the idea. And I was like, maybe maybe this isn't me, maybe this isn't like really what's going on. And so, and then there was another guy, Anthony DeMeo. He's a Jesuit priest, Catholic guy from India, but he died like in the 80s. And I don't know how I came across his thing, maybe from listening to Eckhart Tolle. Like he has this like lecture called Awareness. And it was like an 8 hour like video. And I stayed up all night just listening to it. And it was just like all these concepts of like being attached to your suffering and how like you really, I don't know, it was just like my mind was opening up, but I still had this like addiction and I would still have these like horrible withdrawals. It wasn't like, oh, I can just decide to stop doing drugs. Cause the withdrawals were just like way too, it was just too much for me. And like you really feel like you're gonna die, and I was on such a high dose and I was like had such a high tolerance at that point. Like um even if I would try to go like 1 or 2 days, 3 days, but I couldn't sleep. Like if I could even sleep through it, maybe an hour or something, I'd do it. But after 3 days of just going crazy, I was like, okay, I have to go do it. So I couldn't do it. And I was telling the clinic, like, I'm gonna start lowering my dosage, like little by little until I no longer like I had this goal by my birthday. I don't want to be on this no more. And like I even talked to the counselor. I was like, if I go down this much by this many days, like maybe by my birthday, like it'll be he's like, no, like you can't do this. Like this is like you're here because as soon as you're off of that, you're an addict and you're gonna go back. Like you have to understand, like you're an addict now. Like that's who you are, like this whole identity. And I was just like, okay, your thoughts, And so, but I was just like, I'm like, lower me down 5. And they're like, that's too much. We're going to lower you down 2. And I'm like, if you do 2 milligrams a day, like I'm not going to get to the date. And they would lower down 2 and you could like feel it. Like it's literally like, yeah. And so I was like, okay, this isn't going to work. Like, it's just, I'm not going to make it by the date. And so I was like, okay, like I know I have this life hack. Like I could just really pray. And so, and also Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you heard of Joe Dispenza,
Yeah.
but yeah. So he has, I was like listening to his lectures, and there was these like miracles, of like that's kind of what he what he like what turned him to neuroscience. He had like this accident. The doctors told him he's gonna get a surgery. They're gonna put a rod in his back, and he has to be on medication. And he like refused to take. He's like, no, there has to be another thing. Like I'm not gonna be on medication. I don't want this rod in my back. And
Mhm.
like all the top minds in the world, like you have to do this. You're stupid if you don't. You're never gonna walk again. And he's a chiropractor. He's like, I'm not doing this. And like his accident didn't happen at home, so he had to fly back home and get like other expert opinions. And like he went to the other office, or the other doctor, and they told him instead of a 12-inch one, like we're gonna put a 6-inch one, and we'll take out 2 inches at a time until 2 inches. But you're gonna have a rod, and you're gonna be on medication. Like there is no other option. And he had to think about it, and like he just refused to do it. Everyone's like, "You're crazy! Like what are you doing?" And so he went home, and he just like meditated, and like over and over and over again, and he like put his like spinal cord back together, and like all these like it
Like
was like the most,
manifested his
yeah.
like
But he
manifested.
was a chiropractor and he knew every single bone that was broken, so he could see it, and he was like putting it together, like, and it was like pretty miraculous. And so And so like I believed in things like that, you know. I was like, I really do know, like, you can't just like, I don't trust expert opinion. And so, but I always knew about God, and I always knew about, you know, prayer and things like that through my mom and through the church. And I was like, I'm just gonna go ask God. Like, I can't do this. I need this to happen by this day. But it was more like a stubborn prayer. And because I was like, I'm not getting up until you answer me, you know? Like I was like, I need this. I gotta get off of this. And I was talking to my mom recently, and like I forgot, but my mom, like, she knew I was praying. My mom and my sister and someone else had also been praying, possibly even at the same time. But I was like, I got on my knees. I was in an empty room at my friend's house. Someone had moved out, and I was just like I need this. I can't do this by myself. Um, like if I can, like if you do this for me, I promise. Like I promise, I won't ever do it again. Like I'll do my part, but I can't do it. The
Bargain,
withdrawal.
bargain prayer.
Yeah, yeah. You do this for me, I'll do this for you.
Yeah.
And so, but I needed a miracle, you know, and so this was like the day before my birthday. The next day is my birthday, and I don't go to the clinic, and I'm not feeling sick, and I'm like, this is like interesting, you know, and but I was like, I'm on such a high dose, like maybe, you know, it's still, there's still some in my system. And then so the very next day, like my friend used to take me. He knew if he didn't take me by the time they closed, I was gonna be in bad shape. I had to go hit the streets. I had to go find some pills. I had to, like, you know, medicate myself, and I wasn't gonna be a happy camper. And so my whole body was gonna give out. Like he already knew like the whole story, but he was like always running late. Like he's just super late minute, and like I would depend on him to like give me a ride. At this point, I'm staying with him because I separated myself from the environment, and I had this job, so I needed like a place to just sleep. So I would crash on the couch of his mom's house, and so which they also go to church too, you know. So his mom and his dad, that's how we kind of knew each other. And so I what happened? Oh, the next day he's like, "Come on, we gotta go." Like he looks at the time and like he runs out, and I'm just like, okay, like I'm just like so used to going. So habitually, I just get up, I'm following him to the car, but I'm thinking, I'm like, man, I was able to sleep last night. Like this is just like kind of weird. And as we're going to the car, like clearly, I just heard like, "You don't have to go." Like in this ear, like I could feel the whisper and everything. I turned around, like, who
Yeah.
said that? You know? And it was like, "You don't have to go." Like it was just, that was the only thing I heard. Like, and so I'm just standing there, like I already know I'm crazy, you know, but I was like, am I going more crazy than I already am? And like, and so he's at the car, like, "Come on, let's go. We can make it. We can make it." And I'm just like,
Yeah.
no, I'm like, I'm not gonna go. I'm like actually gonna like, it was like a moment, you know? And I was like, do I
It was a
listen to it?
voice, like
Yeah. I was like,
the
do
real
I,
voice.
yeah. I was like, do I listen? Do I go? I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna not go. Let's see, you know? And I was just like, but I don't tell him. I don't tell anybody like what I was going through. I was like, oh, I got, he's like, no, come on. I was like, I got some pills. Like, don't even worry about it. He's like, come on, it's okay. Like, I'll tell you. I was like, don't even worry about it. I will go tomorrow. So I'm like, man, if I sleep tonight, this is gonna be insane. Because this will be the first time that I've actually slept in years, you know, without needing to medicate. And so I ended up sleeping that night, which was like very weird. And and I wake up in the morning, and when I wake up in the morning, like I'm woken up by like birds. Like a lot of birds were chirping and loud, you know, and I was just like, God, like why are these birds up? Like they wake me up. And even when I go outside, like everything looks different. Like everything just looked like more vibrant, like just everything. Like the trees were vibrant, everything. So I just like start walking around the neighborhood, and I'm just like, why is everything just so beautiful, you know? Like I'm just like,
Yeah.
whoa, like yeah, what's going on? Like I started taking pictures. Like literally I have like 220,000 pictures in this phone, and I just lost 120,000. Like if you look back to my very first post, it was just fly. Everyone's like, "What got into you?" Like, because I was this guy like on the streets, and they're like, "This guy just takes pictures of flowers all day." But like, no one understood. Like, I could see God in everything. Like, I was like, "Whoa,"
It
you
was
know,
like
like, oh,
new lens, new
new.
lens.
Yeah, because even the next day when I wake up, birds did it again. They like, I'm waking up by the birds. And I realized, I was like, oh, I just thought it was those days, but like the birds have always been singing. Like I just haven't been awake, to hear them like
Oh,
at all, like at all. And so, but I was still like, I still had the thoughts and the like everything. But I just did the clinics calling my mom. They're like, "Where's your son?" And I got my mom was just like, I told her I was like, I'm feeling good. I'm not going. My mom was just like super in faith and super believing, like her answered prayer. And she's telling him like, oh, I don't know where he's at, and they're like, he's in the streets, and you better make sure he gets him back. Like we know your son, like there's no way, like you better go. He's gonna go back to jail. Like make sure like he's at least coming before we kick him out, so he can get dosed when he's in jail. And she's like, I can't find him, and like I was just like the next day, I'm just like still shocked. Like I can't believe any of this is happening. I'm like, whoa, like this is just like really like intense. And so I never got sick. And I was just like, I never turned back. And so yeah, I kind of just like ran with it. But I still had I still had the thoughts, and I still had these, like, the reasons that I was getting high, like I still had these
yeah.
situations. I would still, for like a month, I'm in just pure bliss, like just like like a mystic, just walking around. I'm listening to Eckhart Tolle. I'm meditating. I'm just like this, new guy. But I still had like these old habitual like ways of handling certain situations, And so I started reading books and like starting to learn how do I regulate these things? How do I deal with these thoughts? How do I deal with these emotions? And that's like I really got into uh like NLP at the time. Like I'm just like learning all these. Like I remembered, I was like, well, I know there's NLP and that shows you how to like deal with these things. And so um I just like really got into study like a lot, But at this time, like my brother's still on drugs. I'm all high and mighty now, right? I'm like this, so I'm running down there like, you guys just gotta stop. You don't understand. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
I even went back to the clinic to see one of the counselor, and they're just like, this it's not true. Like, like you're for sure using. And I was like, I'm not. And I was like, I'll piss for you guys, And so because they do the piss test there, and like I pissed for them, and they're like, this is fake pee, like this isn't real,
Somebody
like
did it. Yeah. Who did it?
yeah,
Who'd you pay?
because they've never like got a piss that didn't have at least like 8 different drugs. Every time they're like, dude, there's just so many drugs in here, like
Yeah.
um, and even like if you just don't do anything, just the methadone, they'll give you bottles to take home. Like I never was able to take anything home because it was just like there was always so many drugs in there, so they knew my history, and they were just like, you're not gonna, well, if this is true, you're still gonna come back, like, and they still try to put that label on me. And I was like, no, like
Right.
this is done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's done. And yeah, so I just like really got like deep into study. And just kind of like pouring into my brother and like going back to these places. I know a lot of people just, I stopped hanging out in these places, but I would always go back and like, I would always like try to talk to everybody and like kind of just, I guess, kind of do like community work with people. I go sit with them, and I was just like,
Yeah.
there's a different way. Like, and I learned this thing today, and I learned this other thing today, and you could do this, and most people um, didn't want to listen. Some people did. Some people changed, some people stayed. Um, but yeah, that was that experience. And
So
so
we're running out. It's going to
mm,
cut off. I'm going to send you another link and we're going to continue with this. I just
okay,
don't want to lose this. So I'm going to stop it and then send you another link and we're going to keep going.
okay,
Okay, it'll be
okay.
one sec. Okay. See you in a second.